Air pollution and climate change. Air pollution is the presence of substances in the atmosphere that are harmful to the health of human and other living beings, or cause damage to the climate or materials. There are different types of air pollutants, such as gases, particulates, and the biological molecules. Causes and sources of air pollution. Air pollution is caused by the solid and liquid particles and certain gases that are suspended in the air. These particles or gases can come from car and truck exhaust, factories, dust, pollen, mold spore, volcanoes, and wildfires. The solid and liquid particles suspended in our air are called aerosols. Some of types of air pollutions, such as smoke from wildfires or ash from the volcanoes, occur naturally. These are called natural sources. Air pollution is most common in large cities where emissions from many different sources are concentrated. Sometimes mountains or tall buildings prevent air pollution from spreading out. This air pollution often appears as a cloud, making the air murky. It is called smog. The word smog comes from the combining the words smoke and fog. Large cities in poor and developing nations tend to have more air pollution than cities in developed nations. According to the World Health Organization or WHO, some of the world's most polluted cities are Karachi, Pakistan, New Delhi, India, Beijing, China, Lima, Peru, and Cairo, Egypt. However, many developed nations also have air pollution problem. Los Angeles, California is nicknamed a smog city. Indoor air pollution caused by burning solid fuel sources such as firewood, crop waste, and dung for cooking and heating. The burning of such fuels, particularly in poor households, result in air pollution that leads to respiratory diseases which can result in premature death. Toxic products, inadequate ventilation, high temperature, and humidity are a few of the primary causes of indoor air pollution. And our homes also include the molds and pollen, tobacco, smoke. Some construction materials, include insulation, are also dangerous to people's health. In addition, ventilation or air movement in homes and rooms can lead to the spread of toxic mold. A single colony of mold may exist in a damp, cool place in a house, such as between walls. The mold's spores enter the air and spread throughout the house. People can become sick from breathing in the spores. Effects on human. Exposure to high levels of air pollution can cause a variety of adverse health outcomes. It increases the risk of respiratory infections, heart disease, and lung cancer. Both short and long-term exposure to air pollutants have been associated with health impacts. More severe impacts after people who are already ill. Air pollution is also considered as a major environmental risk factor in the incidence and progression of some diseases, such as asthma, lung cancer, particular hypertrophy, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's diseases. Psychological complications, autism, retinopathy, fetal growth, and a low birth weight. People react differently to different types of air pollution. Young children and older adults whose immune system tend to be weaker are often more sensitive to pollution. Conditions such as asthma, heart disease, and lung disease can be made worse by exposure to air pollution. The length of exposure and amount and type of pollutant are also factors. Effects on the environment. Air pollution can damage crops and trees in variety of ways. Ground level ozone can lead to reductions in agricultural crop and commercial forest yields, reduced growth and survivability of trees, seedlings, and increased plant susceptibility to disease, pest, and environmental stresses such as harsh weather. The constant pollution of the air has very negative effects on nature and on human health. Those long-term and medium-term effects have become problems that are difficult to solve. You will see the 10 negative effects the air pollution is causing worldwide. Number 1 is the global warming. Probably global warming is one of the most worrying effects for scientists and environmentalists. Global warming is the direct consequence of the greenhouse effect, which is produced by the high emission of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Most of these emissions are produced by the industry, so this can be remedied by social responsibility and action by companies and factories. The second one is the climate change. Climate change is another consequence of global warming. When the temperature of the planet increases, there is a disturbance in the usual climate cycles, accelerating the changes of these cycles in an evident way. Due to the climate change, the mass of the pools is melting, and this is leading to the flooding and rising of sea levels. The third one is the acid rain. The gases emitted by industries, power plants, boilers, heating, and transport are very toxic. Those gases include the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide issued into the atmosphere that come from fossil fuel burning. When those substances accumulate in the atmosphere and react with water, they form dilute and solutions or nitric and sulfuric acid, and when those concentrations become rare, both the environment and surfaces suffer. The fourth one is the smog effect. The smog effect or bird effect happens when there is a kind of fog, dark fog concentrated over the cities and fields. That fog is a load of pollutants and can be of two types: sulfurous smog and the photochemical smog, both dangerous and harmful to the health. Both types of smog are a consequence of industrial and urban actions. However, sulfurous smog has its origin mainly in the use of coal and mainly industrial processes that has been reduced in the most advanced countries. Nevertheless, there are still many developing countries that are not have treatment protocols for pollutants. The fifth one is the deterioration of fields. Acid rain, climate change, and smog of all damage to Earth's surface. Contaminated water and gases seep into the earth, changing the composition of soils. That directly affects agriculture, changing crop cycles and the composition of the food we eat. The sixth one is an extension of animal species. As the ice masses of the poles melt and sea levels rise, many animal species whose survival depends on the ocean and rivers are threatened. Current change, ocean temperatures change, and migratory cycles change, and many animals are forced to seek food and environmental unknown to them. Deforestation and poor soil quality also mean the disappearance of ecosystems and habitats, and definitely an imbalance in the behavior of many wild species. And the seventh, respiratory health problems. It is probably one of the most obvious and worrying effects for human beings. Pollutants can cause respiratory illness and allergies ranging from cough to asthma, cancer, or emphysema. Inhalations of toxic agents directly affect the lungs and the other organs that make up the respiratory system. Also, poor oxygenation can lead to cardiovascular problems. And the eighth one is the deterioration in building materials. Air pollutants also deteriorate and change the constitution of building materials. So many buildings and infrastructure are weakened, eroded, or destroyed at an accelerated rate over time. Then the ninth one is the chemical sensitivity. People develop intolerances and allergies to many agents present in the atmosphere and to the external agents that can go through due to the holes in the ozone layer. This is because there is a high concentration of chlorofluorocarbons that after the thickness of the ozone layer. Chlorofluorocarbons, or the CFCs, are released using aerosols, industrial refrigerants, solvents, and other very harmful chemicals. And the last one is the skin damage. Many of the chemical intolerances directly affect people's skin. However, one of the worst damage is skin cancer. The disease in any cases developed from the direct incidence of ultraviolet light rays on the skin. The ozone layer acts as a filter for those rays. If the ozone layer is thinner, the effectiveness of the filter decreases, letting rays pass, which are very harmful to humans. All of those important effects can increase if their causes are not rapidly acted upon. Most of them are the result of very intense, polluting, and uncontrolled industrial activity. Companies around the world have the responsibility to manage, treat, and control the pollutants they emit into the atmosphere. Our health and avoiding the destruction of the environment depend on their response. Climate change. Climate change is change in the pattern of weather and related changes in the oceans, land surface, and ice sheets occurring over time scales of decades or longer. Whether in the state of the atmosphere, its temperature, humidity, wind, rainfall, and so on over hours to weeks. It is influenced by the oceans, land surface, and the ice sheets, which together with the atmosphere form from the climate system. Climate is the broadest sense and the statistical description of the state of the climate system.